Hello everyone and welcome back to The Comic Central. I'm your host Alex, and today we're going to be going over a sort of guide to DC Comics, going over their initiatives and sort of what they've done over the years to make it a little bit less confusing, since comics are a little bit confusing to get into. So this is the second episode of, I guess, my Getting Into Comics series. So, yeah, let's just instantly jump into it. So the first part, I guess, of DC that you need to talk about is just the start. You know? Simple. It's had the main changes, but the main thing to talk about is in 1939 with the first appearance of Superman. So that's on a specific, Earth and stuff, so DC's universe has just changed a lot, so yeah, that's just the start of it. That's just how it was, and it was a little bit confusing and convoluted. And then DC eventually transitioned to that. It's like, no, that's Earth 2. And then we're going to have everything else on Earth 1. So it's like, yay, Earth 1. So, mainly comics for a while were on Earth 1. So they sort of still had the Golden Age, because there's, Flash 2 Worlds, and it's like, we're going to have the Golden Age stuff, which is, really old, the 40s until, the 60s. And we're going to keep having that on this one Earth, but then we're going to have the new stories with Batman and stuff, because there was a lot of continuity there, so they cut that off. And then, they're like, it's been a while since we've rebooted stuff in the 80s, and Marv Wolfman was like, how about we reset everything? So they had someone read every single DC comic that has ever existed at that point, which, just sounds like a nightmare, because you cannot skip anything and you have to take extensive notes, and people were mad because I think it might have been Marv Wolfman was like, hey, there's this Green Lantern book, and it's like, oh, it's his first time this character meeting someone, and it's like, oh, that's actually not happening in this issue. So just to make it less confusing, they're like, let's do this. But what they wanted to do is wait till an anniversary, so they waited till, the 40th anniversary or 50th anniversary, something at DC. An anniversary. So they had to wait, 2 or 3 more years. And that's where we get the very famous Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is the key in one of the 2 main reboots that DC's done. They've sort of done softer versus, hard presets. This is the biggest one. Where Monitor, Anti-Monitor, fight, battle. And then the universe is reset. And in this, we get the destruction of a lot of Earths, or at least a good amount. Where a key thing that this also does is that DC as a company, they acquired other companies along their run of time. So it's like, how do we merge these? And a very good way to merge it is by resetting everything and then blending it all together. So that's what they did, I believe, for characters like Shazam and Blue Beetle. I'm thinking the other one's probably The Question and some other characters. So that's what they needed to do there, and I think it works really well. Where, get Blue Beetle, The Question, which is perfect. So, yeah. So now, this is a key moment. I'm going to go over some stories. So after Crisis, there's some really important stuff that happens. Frank Miller does Batman Year 1, which just resets all of Batman. People love it. You get the George Perez Wonder Woman and the John Byrne Superman. So 3 really good things just instantly out of the gate after Crisis. Along with the William Messner-Loeb's Flash, which leads into Mark Waid. So that is around 1985. And there isn't really any, hard, heavy, reboots. There's little reset-ish tweak things. Around the 2000s-ish time, there was stuff like Zero Hour that did a lot of stuff, along with, Teen Titans Teen Titans Young Justice Graduation Day. That sort of merged and changed that up with how characters shifted. But a main sort of point of going over is the Crisis, Infinite Crisis by Jeff Johns. That's another Crisis event. I'm sort of treading over Crisis events. But that was a pretty key one that happened. And it sort of showed some stuff and changed things, like Jason Todd coming back from the death, little spoilers. Going over some small DC stuff, but I'm not going every things crazy. Like I mentioned, the William Ezra Loeb's Flash, because Barry died in Crisis. So did Supergirl. They just wanted to streamline everything. That's a key thing that DC just loves to do, is streamline everything. So they're like, yes, we need to have one Kryptonian, no one else, which makes sense. But it's a little bit frustrating and a little bit confusing, but I think I slightly prefer it to how Marvel does their continuity, but we'll get into that in another video. So, yeah, so now we're at Infinite Crisis. Superboy Prime is upset after all the chaos after, like, Crisis. So he, like, strikes. And then, cool. There's also Final Crisis in that, where Batman dies. Yeah. He definitely dies. We have not seen Batman in a comic since, like, 2009. It's so tragic. It really is tragic. And then we get the Jeff Johns, he did, like, his Infinite Crisis and stuff. He had done a lot of books by then, like, he had done Green Lantern, he had been doing a lot, he did Teen Titans That I Love, Green Lantern, Flash, and with that Flash, it's a key thing, after, Infinite Crisis, he brought back Barry Allen, which is very key for Flashpoint, which, it's pretty iconic now, made it into that Flash movie that, I don't know, not a ton of people hated. When you, like, people don't like it, but it's, like, critically it wasn't, like, terribly received. I thought it was alright. I haven't seen it since. I don't, like, really have the care to. But it wasn't a bad theater experience. But, I don't know. Yep, so we get Flashpoint, which, it's like the Barry trying to save his mother, because they had to change his origin to make it tragic, because it was, like, the mid-2000s. And his only origin was in the 60s, and then he was just, like, there for 20 years, then he died and was gone for, like, 30 years. Where you just get Wally, which was great. Love Wally, love Barry. Both of them are great. But with that, we then get the New 52, which is a very key moment. So I was stating that there's two sort of heavy reboots. So Crisis heavily rebooted everything. So did the New 52. Where Barry sort of went back in time, changed everything. Most characters' ideas and stuff, it was condensed into just 5 years. So, like, Superman only been Superman for 5 years. But New 52 had a lot of problems. I'm sort of summarizing stuff that I've gotten from, like, other ideas, so I'm not doing, like, crazy amounts of research here. But just editorially, there were New 52. It's called New 52 because there was 52 titles. And then after, like, 8 months, the title would get canceled because it was just doing terribly. And then it's like, we're going to replace it with more. They're not going to streamline it and have a certain amount of titles. So it was chaos, and a lot of people got fired and then rehired. Gail Simone had that problem with her Batgirl, which I've heard great things, and sad to see her go through that. There was some heavy editorial interference with J.H. Williams and I believe Greg Rucka's Batwoman run, which is sad to see. I'm trying to think of other sort of moments, but New 52 was not a great time. There were still some really good highlights of the New 52. I'm very informed about New 52 stuff, because I don't know, I'm just young, and I've read good amount of New 52 stuff, but you got almost all the Batman stuff, a good amount of the Batman stuff at least, like the Nightwing I enjoy, it's not my favorite Nightwing, but it's good, Batman and Robin, love it, Batgirl, I've heard great things, Red Hood and the Outlaws wasn't horrific, so I'd recommend checking out those titles, and there was some other really good stuff that I've heard, like the Wonder Woman. Superman was chaos around that time, because it was 5 years, but so you had Marv Wolfman, who, important, big guy, my apologies, it was George Perez, I believe, I believe it was George Perez, Marv Wolfman, one of those two, but they were on Superman, as a writer, and Grant Morrison, who he did, like, Final Crisis, he's, like, the biggest DC guy. It's, like, him and Jeff Johns. Sorry, my apologies. So those two were key for DC. But they wanted to say no to him. And there was the Superman, which happened at the same time, that, like, 5-year gap. And then Morrison's was 5 years before that. So and they weren't comparing notes. So Grant could be like, oh, the family is alive versus, like, dead or whatever, and they just didn't know, and they weren't communicating, so it didn't work. So the New 52 only lasted around 5 years, from 2011, I'm 2 weeks older than the New 52, or younger. Sorry, yeah, same month, but September 2011. Yeah, so great time, I guess. But then in 2016, they were like, yeah, New 52 is rough. It's not working. We need to reboot again. And they didn't do a full reboot, but they did a soft reboot. And Wally West was gone because in the Flash title, like, there's a Wallace West, where they, like, change his skin tone and stuff. I won't fully get into the drama around that. But they're like, we're going to bring Wally back, but also, we don't want to get rid of the other Wally. So we're going to have both, and then we're going to explain it in a very confusing way that makes no sense. I still don't fully understand it, but you have Wally, and then you have Wallace. Wally was the older one, and then they remembered him, and then they explained it in Titans, and it slightly made sense, and was really cool. And that was a fun book by Dan Abnett. Yeah. But so, yeah. So Rebirth worked a good amount better. Some of the highs weren't as high as the New 52, but there were not as low lows by far. There were only around 27 to 32 titles, I believe. They brought back the old Superman. They brought back, like, post-Crisis, sort of like, around Infinite Crisis-ish era Superman. They sort of brought him back, and he has a son now. And yeah, it's better. They're, like, older and stuff, so it makes more sense that Bruce has a 10 or 12-year-old son. Because, like, condensing 4 Robins into 5 years does not work well. But they gave it its time, got a lot of creators working on good books, and most stuff was received very well. The numberings of books are still, like, transferred from this. So, next month we get Batman number 1. But since 2016, it has been the same numbering system. For a few books. So Nightwing's still on that same, so it's at, like, 120... I think it might be, like, 130 or something. That's around where it is now. Maybe, like, 128. Batman's higher. But that's how it's been set. So Rebirth has been a key thing that's shown still here. And they haven't done a full hard or like any like crazy reboot since, but they've done shifts. Like Jonathan is now an adult and was sort of the main Superman for a little bit ish. He had like his own like Superman Son of Kal-El, Tom Taylor. Wasn't received great. I don't hate the book, but it only lasted 18 issues. So yeah. So in Rebirth, there's a lot of success, a lot of happiness. It's great. Doomsday Clock was very much chaotic. I can't even fully get into that in this video, but it was very much chaotic. So, yeah, that's just how it went. It's like, oh, Watchmen, trying to tie in that book, because, like, everyone loves Watchmen. It's one of the greatest comics ever. As I've heard, I haven't read it yet. Okay, do not bash me in the comments for not reading Watchmen. It is just how it is, and I'm not the biggest fan of it either, okay? I'm not the biggest fan of it either. But that's just how it is. So, yeah, please just don't harass me in the comments for not liking not reading Watchmen. It's been a long day. But yeah, Watchmen's just not been a thing that I've been able to do yet. I've been busy with other stuff, been golfing a lot, been doing a lot of outside stuff, so the channel hasn't been showing as many videos. But yeah, so now we're at, I guess, DC All-In is the next. They, like, transferred to, like, now DC Universe after Rebirth. Rebirth only lasted, like, two or 3 years of, like, being, like, the books of Rebirth. But some books, they'd have every other week. So instead of being once a month, they'd be, like, 2. Apologies, I'm not cutting this. But that's just how it would go, which I sort of like, so it would be really quick in between runs. Some highlights that I want to quickly go over. I haven't gone through this for every section, but I haven't read a ton. But The Flash by Joshua Williamson, The Superman by Tomasi and Gleason, and The Batman by Tom King. I'm trying to think of other ones, but none come to the moment, but there's a lot of other good stuff in Rebirth that you will enjoy, definitely. And I think that's about all for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys like and subscribe. I have a podcast on Spotify, the Central Comics Podcast, where I'm also posting some of the episodes here. I don't do a lot of podcast stuff now since my brother's at college, so it's hard to get us to do that. So yeah, please use the new YouTube hype feature. Like, I'm really needing help with subscribers and stuff. I haven't gained a lot in like months this entire summer and all that. Now the summer's over, it's a little bit stressful, but I'm trying to get to 500 by the end of the year. So I will do a full live stream where in one day I have to finish all of Spider-Man 1. It's a terrible idea, but please get me to 500 so I can do that. And until next time, I'm out.